Checking out everything. Make sure it is okay. And we will start the show. So that's good. That's good. That's good. Hello, everyone. Let me take my tablet. See if anybody says hello from the email. Yeah, here we go. That's okay. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome aboard. This is the live show coming to you from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And we talk about radio, have fun on the radio. We're going to talk a little bit about two new radios that I have to play with, which is a lot of fun, of course. And I'm tuning the bands with the Air Spy HF Plus Discovery right now on the laptop. And we're, of course, trying to. There's a lot of Asian signals, China, mainly China, but there's a lot of signals coming from the Asia region on 25 meters and 22 meters on 13 megahertz, 11 megahertz. I tried Thailand, but there's a weak carrier with nothing much on 15590. Propagation is really improved because there's solar flux is at 110, which is pretty nice, and there's quite a lot of sunspots on the sun actually at this time. Solar activity is picking up a lot, so this is nice, and hope that it's an indication of the winter to come. So, anyways, welcome everybody. This is the Shortwave radio show or stream. What it's all about, it's about radio and listening to long distance signals from far away with the radio. And we are live twice a week, once on Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. That's technically Thursday for a lot of people, 0 UTC. And we are also live on Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern. That's 20 hours Universal Time. The important thing to remember is Universal Time, because in a couple of weeks, we're going to change our time. And so the reference to your local time might actually be different. But if you remember UTC, it's always UTC. So it's always the same on UTC. So it's always 0 UT and 20 hours UT. If you remember that, you're all right. We are here from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. My name is Gilles, and of course, we have been doing this for quite a while now. We've been doing this for several years, and we do live shows and just tune the bands, talk about radios, because radio isn't dead. There's still a lot of stuff, and examples today will be about radios that are still being sold for shortwave. And there's a lot more than you think on shortwave. A lot of people think shortwave's dead. It's not. It's different. But it depends on what you're looking for. That also can make a difference between you want to listen to shortwave or not, also. But I listen every day and I find tons of things to listen to. And, well, it's a solitary hobby, and this live show helps have tons of people gather around together talking about radio. And this is what we do, gather all the people and share our radio listening hobby together, which is fun because from your home, you have the impression of being in a big gang of radio fans. And this is the cool thing about here. And of course, when all this is over, if you do have a Facebook account, you can join in our Facebook group and continue sharing about radio, talking about radio. If it's the only thing you do, it's the only thing you do. Join Facebook just for the group, and that's it. Don't have to, add friends or anything. And that's all up to you. We will look at the email here. So we have Richard Lemke, that is from St. Albert in Alberta, Canada. Hey, Richard. Says, good evening. Nice late fall afternoon, 14 Celsius. Enjoy the program. So cool. Nice to have you here, Richard. As always. And we have Elizabeth that says hello. She says she's feeling a little better and that she will be enjoying listening to the show tonight and tuning around on her Kenwood R5000 receiver. And hope that she says she hopes that she's going to get some interesting DX throughout the evening. Thanks for all you do. So thank you, Elizabeth. And well, nice to know that you're feeling better also. Today I didn't have a lot of time for radio. I did yesterday and the day before because I got these two little toys to play with. Look at that, guys. Look at that. So a guy named Fernand that lives here in Montreal watching the show. He's not very interactive, so he says he's rarely in the chat room. But he had this radio lying around and doing nothing. He never used it, and it was actually all packed brand new in the box. And he says he's had that for about 2 years at home. And he thought he'd use it, but he's actually purchased an SDR play device. And he says that now he's hooked to the SDR play and doesn't feel like he will ever use the portable. So a St. Gian ATS 405 portable receiver. So this is a little gift. So thank you so much, Philna. And we have CountyCom, Nick Casarino from CountyCom that sent me their latest little toy, the CountyCom GP7 SSB, which is the Texan PL 368, slightly modified with a better antenna at least. So this is the little baby I'm playing with since yesterday also. So it's kind of a fun week. Nothing like having two new radios that you never played with before. Although the CountyCom I kind of know a little bit because it's the Texan PL 368. And I had the Chinese version here. So I already know somewhat about that radio. But there are some differences because the original 368 that I have here is the Chinese version and does not have frequency calibration. And probably a few bugs have been also fixed in here because it has firmware 3682. So the CountyCom has firmware 3684, adds frequency calibration capabilities, and like I said, probably fixes a few bugs at the same time. So we're going to talk a little bit about it. It's not going to be like full review, but I will give my positive, negative points about the radios, and you guys will be here first to learn more about it before I actually do a review. Now, before we start, let's have a little toast. So whatever you're having, Coca-Cola, water, tea, coffee, hot cocoa, wine, beer, the official drink is here with cranberry vodka. Cheers. Nice to have all of you here and talk about a radio. So, Bobby Burgess, WA5107SWL, Morgan City, Louisiana. Nice to have you here. The Blind Picker, nice to have you here. Rob, always nice to have you on board, my friend. Duane, nice to have you on board from Tennessee. Randall, nice to have you here from Chicago area. Uh, Rob, nice to have you here from Phoenix, Arizona. Skip, nice to have you on board from N2EI. Skip, well known if you've read magazines like the Monitoring Times and so on. A well known name in the shortwave spectrum and the radio in general. David, KJ4CMY, nice to have you on board from Pleasant, Central Georgia. Wilbur, nice to have you here from South Jersey. Mark Cup, WA5153SWL in Dallas, Texas. Good evening. WF7I Ombrew, good evening from West Central Virginia. Working some FT8 on 80 meters tonight. Cool. Joe Rotten, nice to have you here from Chicago area. Dave from Indianapolis. Rob is W0RAB in Connecticut. He is a blind ham. And so we have a few blind people in the radio hobby that are joining here. Elizabeth in Regina, Saskatchewan is also blind. And I know of a few others. So it's nice to see that you're here. And it's kind of cool because, radio is a perfect hobby as it brings the world and brings, a way to like being a ham, for example, a way of communication that is really cool. So that's really nice. All you have to do is, set it up properly. I get requests from time to time, what radio should I buy? I'm blind. I got actually a request. Was it last week or the day, but the week before? What shortwave receiver should I buy as a blind person? And I got to say, it's something you don't think of, but you need to, because people are there are some blind people that would like to join the hobby. It's sad that not many radios have, especially since it's like so low cost today to implement this in radios. But radios like the ICOM ICR30 that have the voice synthesizer that tells you what mode, what frequency you're tuning is of great help, of course. So it's getting your way around with different radios, but unfortunately we don't have a lot of equipment that thinks about the people that have some form of disabilities of any kind, be it being blind, or having some other disability that makes it difficult to play around with a receiver. It's something to think about, that unfortunately we live in a world where when you're a little bit outside of the mainstream, companies tend to not really think about any implementation of special features like that, which is a little sad. There should be more radios and more, and like I said, implementing like a speech synthesizer into a radio is low cost today. It's not like in the 1980s. So it's nice to have all of you guys here listening to the show. James, nice to have you here from New Jersey. Dwight, nice to have you here from coastal Virginia. Canadian Prairies Shortwave, nice to have you here, my friend. Brawler, nice to have you on board from Northeast Arkansas. Skip has WWCR booming into New Jersey on 6115. Keegan, nice to have you here, extending the exit from Northwest Arkansas. Charlie, W8CFO from Columbus, Ohio. Jetcrafter says, can't wait to get that Conicom GP7. James Farley says, how do relay stations get their feeds? So there are three ways that you can pretty much feed into a relay station. Most of them today, what they do is you can actually send the latest show that you want to air on a radio station, a relay, in an MP3 format. So you just log into their website. An example is our CKUT show, the International Radio Report, that Sheldon Harvey and me actually co-host. That's how it works. What we do is we pre-record the show, and I edit and then I send the MP3. I log into CKUT websites um, for the posting the show. I choose my time slot for the International Radio Report, upload the MP3 there, and it's ready to play. So a lot of shortwave stations, that's the way it is. They give you an access to a computer on the internet, and there you can actually upload the show for playback whenever you need to have that playback. So there's that. When things are live, what could happen is two things. Today, more and more, it's fed through the internet because it's a cheap, inexpensive way of doing it. But for a long time, actually, and still today, there's a lot of that going on. You'll hear, for example, like the BBC or Radio Japan will be sending the feed through satellite. And what plays through your shortwave radio on that relay is a satellite feed. So Radio Japan is one of the that uses that. BBC World Service uses that a lot also. And sometimes you can see that it's a satellite feed because in between they might have some kind of musical interlude. And if for some reason the show ends early or isn't there, all you hear is that interlude. And that happened a lot. We heard that a lot also with Radio Canada International. So satellite is used, but internet is also used. And in cases of like shows that will play and they're not that don't need to be live every day, it could be simply an MP3 is uploaded to the station for playback, and that's an easy way to do so. What else do we have? Bob D, nice to have you on board, my friend. Trying to catch up here a little. What else? What else do we have? Calvin says, "Hey, how's the pizza?" Some people know things that others don't. Yeah, I had some Pizza Hut, which is kind of a once a year thing here, because I find it's a really, really very greasy type pizza, but once a year is kind of not bad at all. Actually, it wasn't planned, but I worked hard today. Um, did a lot of things, a lot of manual work today with things I needed to do. I also built my new bed that I received from Amazon. So that took like 2 hours to build frame and everything, and put and then make sure that it all works and fits well. And then there's tons of things, the old bed to take out to the out to the trash, and then there's a lot of stuff that I had to fix. So I had a lot of very physical day today, and a little tired actually. While I'm doing the show, I can feel it. This guy's been working hard. So you know what? I that pizza was welcome instead of making any food. Uh, so we have RJDA Dakota. Nice to have you here. Um, my friend, we have Joe. Nice to have you here from Newmarket, Virginia. Christian Marcoux, bonjour et bienvenue de North Bay, Ontario. J'espère que tu vas bien. Nice to have you on board. Noilson, nice to have you here from Brazil. Was just listening, and actually it's a pretty good signal tonight. 11780 Radio Nacional Amazona. It's a pretty good signal tonight here. Pretty good signal. S9 plus 30, 40. Might sound a little noisy here the way it is, but it's actually not bad at all. WF7I Ombru, nice to have you here. We have Maybe let's check something. I'm just curious. As we're getting close to Halloween, just out of curiosity, if any pirates are out there tonight. Get you up on the ground. As we'll get closer, we might have a little more. So 4061. 4061. Let's check that out. 4061. Anything here? I do see something very weak, but doesn't seem like that. I have the impression of I'm hearing some talk on 4060 upper sideband. And it says it's Philo radio. So I'm hearing some talk. It's not very strong, but it's definitely there. There's a pirate on 4060 upper sideband. I can hear it just barely above the noise floor here. And it's barely showing on the waterfall. So if you guys want to try that one. And apparently Captain Morgan in AM mode on 6950. So, but the one that I have right now is Philo Radio. And that one actually I hear just above the noise on 4060. I don't know why the guy says 4061 point something. I have 4060 right on the dot and it sounds natural. So I don't know. So if you want to try the pirate, 4060 upper side band, if you guys want to try that. Okay. Let's check it out here. Brad, nice to have you here. We have Michael, nice to have you on board. Chicago Lights the Pipe, purrs a drink. Al, nice to have you on board from Westport, Massachusetts. Our big windstorm finally end today. Yeah, we had a pretty big, probably we had the same thing you guys had. We had a lot of rain and a lot of wind in the last 48 hours here too. Was pretty crazy. It was one of those October, November storms, that you have. That's where, you know what, when you wake up in the morning and it's raining and it's windy, you just look outside the window and you're happy to work from home. So, it's like really, really cool. Okay. Rod Skilling, nice to have you here. William Helms, nice to have you on board from Florida. Dean, nice to have you here from Georgia. John Beckham, nice to have you here from Northeast Florida. It says 15,000 to 17,000 around 23 was very active with various stations being received here in these bands. Yeah, it's the higher solar activity plus the time of year that we are at right now is there's a lot of stations from Asia. I've noticed from the about 31 meter band all the way up to 17 megahertz easily, and even more. Lots of stations from Asia. I heard a couple of fire drakes that I didn't hear for such a long time. The fire drakes are very unique because it's really like Chinese music played all the time. A lot of CNR1, a couple of China Radio International in English that were heard direct from China. Also, I had one just earlier on before the show was I think it was 13710. Was CNC China Radio International in English from Beijing. No cat here, but there's Paul sleeping in the new bed that is higher, and it's so funny because Paul is a little fat now, and the bed is about 5 inches higher than the one that I had before, and Before, he just jumped on the bed. Now he has to run a little bit before jumping on the bed. It's just kind of funny to see. And Paul's girlfriend, I think, is in the living room on the couch sleeping. So, two cats in the house tonight. Um, William Helms, 1517 megahertz was awesome on my DX375 this morning. So yeah, and SolarFlex 110, that helps also on the higher frequencies, that's for sure. Shelly, nice to have you here from South Central Pennsylvania. Trustin, nice to have you here from Newfoundland. RGDA Dakota, Shortwave is not dead. The players are somewhat different than they were. That's all. Yep. Dave, VTM on my Texan 330 just captured 54 signals for me in downtown Indianapolis, a record. Cool. John Beckham finally picked up WWV at 25 megahertz around 23 UT. Cool. Congratulations. So like I said, Rob Paul is in the bedroom in the new bed, and his girlfriend is in the living room on the couch. It's just so funny. Sometimes they're on the bed together. It happens from time to time that they're like really sleeping close together. Rick from Milwaukee, nice to have you here. Anything else? Skip 11660, Voice of America from Thailand and New Jersey. Wow, this is cool. Cool. 11660. Do I hear something there? There's definitely a signal there. Definitely a signal there. AM. Yep. 660 is there. Absolutely. So I'm probably hearing the same thing. It's pretty crazy. These signals coming in from the Asian region. Falstrat, salut. J'espère que tu vas bien. Saint-Julien, VA2, GCF. Nice to have you here. From not that far from Montreal. VA2, GCF. Welcome aboard. Brian Vantenheimer, nice to have you on board. Talked to a guy in Texas from his pickup on CB on the way to work in the morning. Always amazes me. It is always amazing. We can get used to propagation, get used to certain aspects of our hobby. I mean, the first time you hear, I remember the first time I heard Radio Australia on my radio. I just couldn't believe that I was receiving a radio signal that was halfway around the world and so far. And it drives you crazy just thinking about it. Although you get used to it, because, when you've been almost 40 years in a hobby, you kind of get used to the fact that there are signals that come from far away. When you really sit down and think about it, it's still amazing. I still remember my nephew, Gabriel. That was just so funny because, we were talking about shortwave, and he likes Japan and Japanese culture and animes and stuff. And he was planning a trip to Japan. And when he got my Texan PL450, he was listening to Radio Japan. And one day we talk about Radio Japan. He says, "Oh, it was coming in, well today." And I said, "Well, the frequency you were listening to is a relay from Madagascar, and that's in the Indian Ocean." And he just blurts out something like, "Wow, it's even further away than Japan." And at first, before we even said that, it never crossed my mind. Yes, Madagascar is far away, but suddenly is Madagascar further away than Japan for Montreal? And indeed, I looked at the distance of Tokyo, Japan. I look at the distance from Madagascar relay station, and I'm like, wow, it's actually further away than Japan. So it's kind of a really neat DX thing, It's really because the angle of the transmission towards Africa is also towards us, and that frequency actually works well for us, that we hear them so well. I mean, that Madagascar relay station is so well placed for us in North America to receive tons of those transmissions. Look at the African Pathways transmission. They're always super strong here in the East Coast. If I wish more people, more stations would use the Madagascar relay for their broadcast towards Africa, because it brings that broadcast towards North America at the same time. And if they choose the correct frequency, I mean, shortwave doesn't have borders or boundaries. It just continues, and we hear it. Um, that was one of the reasons of 9915 or at 04 UT here in North America. The BBC this summer was constantly a really good catch at 04 UT and 9915. Why? Because it was the Madagascar relay, and they were transmitting towards Africa, towards North America. And the frequency 9915 was well chosen for that transmission to us. It was, but it is amazing. It is amazing. And especially, if you do yourself, you do a contact. I know the first contact that I will do on ham radio when I get my license, I'll be jumping up and down that I talked to some guy, and even if it's in the US or um or whatever, one of the things that I often got, somebody had actually corrected me a little bit on that. I remember in the 80s when I had my sister corrected me on that. So my sister was a ham radio operator in the 80s. And I remember telling her, it's like, wow, I hear almost only hams from the United States. I'm tired. I want to hear from other countries. And she was at home one day, and I'm listening to some hams, and she says, well, that ham is from California. And I'm like, okay, well, remember that California from here, California is as far away as Europe. It's still a pretty good, station to hear on your radio. And I'm like, yeah, maybe I'm not thinking, you know, I'm thinking more of, well, it's always from the US, but at the same time, it's like hearing a station from Vancouver, Canada. It's like really far away. Vancouver from Montreal is a pretty good distance. And it's easy to forget sometimes, especially here in North America, our distances are pretty big. So it's like, yeah, okay. You're making me realize that I'm actually hearing from stations real far away. It's just I'm not realizing really that. G. Lee, nice to have you here from Central California. WA6120WL. Riley says, interesting. I have a couple of SDR for listening and still dial things up on the portables, but usually okay listening to many things simultaneously. I do pretty much the same. I love my SDR because of the visuals and what it brings, the information it adds to my radio listening. But it doesn't stop me from using my portables either. And I often also, with the multi-coupler, you can call me crazy, but I often have 4 radios running at the same time. And sometimes on all 4 are on the same station, same frequency. Sometimes all 4 are on different frequencies. And but it happens quite often. Joe owns the Sanjian. Mine performs best on medium wave. Paul, nice to have you here from Southwest Michigan. Tom D. Exer, nice to have you here from the Hudson Valley, New York. Sebastien Lekai, nice to have you on board. And I will be on the 30th. So my Halloween show this Saturday is at 20 UTC, Saturday, October 30th. On the 31st, official Halloween night, I won't be alive. I will be going out and checking out the little monsters trick-or-treating. and then watching some horror movies, and of course checking out a few pirates at the same time. But it's on Saturday that we're having our Halloween show this year. VT Radio, Paul, nice to have you here from XX Junction, Vermont, AA1SU. Nice to have you on board, my friend. It's always cool to have you here. What else do we have? Simon Templar, nice to have you on board. Nice to have you on board. Zen Faros, nice to have you here from Northern Westchester with the Drake R8, which is a fine, amazing, great receiver. David, KJ4CMY, water tonight. Don't drink too much of that. William Helms, I owe extra postage for my Yardboy 400. My shipping address in my debit card information was incorrect. I entered it before I had a chance to have it corrected. Aha. Nathan Petrovsky, nice to have you here. He's also blind. So cool. Well, not cool that you're blind, but cool to see that there's a community of radio listeners that enjoy amateur radio and radio I think it's the best hobby ever for a blind person. Radio is just perfect for that, and it puts everybody in the real world with everybody else, and just look here. I mean, we have this live show, we have this stream, and we have radio. I mean, when you're a ham radio operator, blind ham, you make a contact with, because let's face it, in the official world of, of everything perfect, everything would be fine with every person and their, handicaps or all sorts of problems with, whatever they live through. And the reality is we feel, if you have a handicap, if you have some disability, I get it from the way that sometimes people act, that we feel that we're treating you differently, when sometimes, and even often, you just want to be treated like everybody else. I always say to people, when you see somebody in a wheelchair, for some reason, most people think that they are, they have some kind of mental illness or something. No, it's not because you can't walk that you have a problem, that, you're some kind of a mental patient. Unfortunately, it's for some reason, that's the way that some people react. And radio is great, because in amateur radio, for example, nobody knows you're blind. And I'm sure that you probably enjoy the fact that if you don't even talk about it, you are not treated different through radio. You are treated like everybody else. And that is cool, because at least you are who you are, and that other person is, normal, acting normally, and not trying to go out of its way of doing anything weird or special just because they think it's better or not. And I think radio is great for that. David, KJ4CMY, my IC7100 has a voice synthesizer. Dave, 13710, all in your radio. Nelson, I'm testing my RTL SDR V3 to listen to shortwave using a wire. And to be honest, I prefer to use my Texan. Yeah, and SDR is not for everybody. Honestly, SDR is not for everybody. Not everybody enjoys using a computer to tune the bands. It's not what everybody likes. Alex, nice to have you here from the UK. Larry, nice to have you on board. It says MLA 30 survived a 92 mile an hour breeze Glad, Todd, you'd like to know as well. Power pack, power is back, and so nice to have you here, Larry. I'm not surprised, honestly. First of all, the way it's built, that metal, that tin metal loop survives. You would have had 150 mile an hour, and as long as your mast or the way that you put it out holds, everything else is going to hold up. So I mean, it's a great little antenna. Darren Rogers from Long Island, New York. Nice to have you here. Rufus Newt from Laurentian Valley, Ontario. James Farley, R5000 has voice option. Yep, that's why Elizabeth is using it, actually. She has the voice synthesizer option on it. Paul, 4060, Philo Radio with Zeke. Gang of Four, nice to have you here from New Hampshire. And we have Andy New from Bristol, UK. MAH3007SWL. Not sure how long I'll be here. Cancer treatment starts Thursday. Well, you know what? Take it easy and all for the best. I'm sure things are going to go well. Okay. And I think the best for all of that is to enjoy radio. Radio is a great companion in times of. I have a little secret with you guys. For some reason, I don't know why. So through my life, I've been suffering a lot about anxiety, and anxiety comes in many different forms. And I'd say one of the worst forms for me is that I wake up at 5 in the morning, and I have the impression that there's pressure and I have difficulty breathing, but it's not real. I've learned that it's not real, that it's in my head for the most part, but it feels bad and it doesn't feel good. You have the impression of searching for your air, but in reality, it's really just a sensation, not a real thing. If I go to the hospital, they're going to say, like, I don't see anything wrong. They've passed x-rays from chest x-rays, all sorts of things. And it's like, they look at me and it's like, oh, everything is normal. At some point you go to the hospital and you feel like you're a mental patient because they're all like, yeah, you're here for nothing. It's like, yeah, but I know what I feel. And it's true, actually, when we say we got to be careful of the internet for certain things, but the internet can also help in others. It's when I searched through the internet that I finally had a lot of the links going through, anxiety websites. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's exactly what I have. And you learn that it's in your head, but you have no control over it, or very little. And in the past couple of weeks, I've been having it's been a long time since I had this. In the last couple of weeks, I had a couple of days that I woke up like at 5 a.m., kind of searching my breath and everything. And I'm like, okay, it's back. And what I do is I get up and turn on the PC, put the SDR on, and check for signals. Check out what's there. It kind of takes your mind off of it, and after an hour and a half, it's like stuff are just getting better, and then I go back to bed. But radio in certain times is a great friend, and we got to take care of that. And when there's something going on, you just turn on the radio. VT Radio just finished recapping a Zenith Transoceanic H400 for a local guy that say my videos. It came out really good. Receiver was more sensitive than his K2KE 1103. Cool. Brad, nice to have you here. Good evening. Charles, does anyone ever talk about atomic clocks here? The signal is broadcast on long wave. I highly recommend marathon clocks, but the time display is not meant for UTC. Yeah, most atomic clocks, which actually receive the WWVB signal, are meant for local time because they adjust themselves with that. Actually, my weather station here is capable of that, and it's actually synced last night because there's a little antenna on it that is on the display, which means that it actually synced with WWVB since it's been on that wall. So that is the let me just here. This is the weather station here. Since it's been there on the wall, it's been almost every night. It's been syncing with the clock on WWVB. So it's it's um, kind of nice to have those. But unfortunately, you know what would be nice to have one that you can actually set to your favorite time zone, so UTC, but it just receives the information to sync to make sure that time is always precise. But yeah, they are nice devices. They are totally nice devices, absolutely. And it's one of those things that is it's cool to have. It's cool to have. And the only problem with them is that they are a little touchy here on the East Coast. You know, starting from here in Montreal and up to the east of Canada in the Maritimes, signal of WWVB tends to be quite weak. And that means that those signals tend to not synchronize the clocks here. So it's not always, depends where you live. Tatoy, nice to have you on board. Just recently got a Belka DX and coupled it to an MLA30 loop. Very happy. So pretty cool. Lots of people are happy with the Belka. A lot of people are happy with that Belka DX. Maybe that's what I should get soon. Yarabamba, do you have a Twitter account? Yes, of course. And it's at, I'm going to put it here, Twitter. My account is at Shortwave Radios. Think of many radios. So Shortwave Radios is my Twitter account. And I post a link to the show there. I will post some link to International Radio Report and sometimes links to different things that are radio related. I have, I don't know, more than 1,000 followers right now. It's not that I take care of it that much, but I do somewhat take care of it. And I don't know where I can see my information. Here we go. I got 1,261 people following me and 106 people that I am following actually of different things. So at Shortwave Radios is where my Twitter account is. If you guys are on Twitter, want to join in, I try to post more on it to kind of keep it more alive and have people enjoying what I do. Because I think a lot of people, there's a few people that told me that it's important that I post some stuff there, especially live shows, because that's where they see that I actually exist. And they're not on Facebook or anywhere else. Calvin says, glad you enjoyed it. Had a job interview today. I think it went well, and I rewarded myself with a Chinese. So I would not put with a Chinese because that sounds weird. With Chinese, just with Chinese. That's it makes me laugh. It's like rewarded myself with a Chinese. It's like, that sounds weird. So well, you know what? Thumbs up, and I'm sure you got a job. You know, we have that feel. I always had that feel every time I went for a job interview before I decided that going for a job was not my thing. um, every time I went at an interview and those big interviews, I would go outside, and I remember last job that I had officially where I was the boss. I went to the interview, got outside, after about an hour, and I was coming back home, and in my head, I was like, I got that. I got a job. It's impossible they're not going to call me. I got home, and I think it took half an hour. So, ready to come in tomorrow? Yep, sure. It was done. It's like, I think when we have a good feel, usually it's a good feel. John McClure, nice to have you here. Trick or treat. Joe, humidity is terrible. In Virginia, Maryland. Wow. Calvin, how common is it in these portable radios like the Texan PL680, Sony 7600 JR for the capacitors to go dead or start to leak when they're idle with the batteries out? We talk that's an interesting question because we talk about that for older radios in general. There's a few things that make older radios a little more. And by the way, I'm half an hour and back in the back in the chat room. Okay, so I'll catch up someday. Um, Older radios tend to have more problems with bad capacitors for another reason. A lot of them created a lot of heat, and we know that heat and electronics they're not the best friends because there are as temperatures get higher, the electronics actually wear out faster. um, so a lot of the older radios suffer from that, with the capacitors suffered also because of the heat generated within the device also. So there's that. There's the manufacturing the capacitors, depending on the company and where they got the capacitors and the quality of them. Of course, the old tube radios with the paper capacitors. Problem with paper capacitors was that they would dry out, and that was a very common problem. Then, of course, the um, newer electrolytic capacitors. Well, some of them sometimes will, you could see it if you open a radio, an older radio. If you see the capacitors, they should be flat at the top. But if you see that there's a slight bump on the top, that means the capacitor is about to wear out. We talk about that a lot on, big receivers and older receivers. We don't talk about it a lot on portable receivers, like today's receivers. Technically, today's radios in 30 years should be also having some issues with old age of electronics. Now, today's radios have one thing that is very different. Open up today's receivers, they have different types of capacitors. There's not a lot of big electrolytic capacitors today in radios. They tend to be much smaller and different, and I don't know. Could they be better? I don't know. Um, it's hard to really answer that question because we see the wear and tear of the electronics of older devices of 30, 40, 50 years ago because they're old now, and we see what wears out first. And I'm sure what's going to happen, I look at today's, we're in 2021. I purchased the majority of my portable shortwave receivers within the last 10 years. Technically, 10 years, they're still kind of young in electronics. But when it's going to be 20 or 30 years, maybe that's where I'm going to see what wears out first. What are the problems that arise from them, and what parts are actually being the first one to wear out in electronics. Electronics they're not forever. Electronics is not going to last a million years. Electronics have a wear and tear even when you don't use them. Just the existence of their parts, the way that they were built, the components, the metals, all of that, over time, there's a change. Things change, things corrode, things will, um, wear off in some way. I look. That's one thing I look at when I look at my Commodore 128 or my Amiga 500. You're looking at, you know, 35-year-old computers. And the first thing that comes to mind is, how long does that CPU last? How long does a CPU last? How long will a Z80 from, 1979 work before they are totally unreliable? Because today what we see is that a lot of these are still pretty reliable. And, a Commodore 128, everything works fine. It's just the power connector is a slight problem, but these old computers still work. But electronics will wear out over time. The biggest problem that will be with that is that 50-year-old radios, they're big, a lot of space, easy to repair. A Sony 7600, Texan 680, even the radios that I had today or this week, that ain't easy to repair. When that wears off, when the electronics dead, there are probably not a lot you're going to be able to do to actually bring it back to life, because these are too small and too difficult to repair. Mark Cope, hearing 4060 in Dallas, Texas. Ron, nice to have you on board. Enjoy your efforts to keep shortwave on the radar. Thank you very much. BZN, nice to have you here from the Oregon coast. Dave, 4060, Ziki is 444 in Indianapolis. We have Charlie, W8CFO, 4060, Audible in Ohio. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. We have Skip 4060, loud and clear in South New Jersey. Male voice followed by music. Cool. Riley. Yes. If you pull up K9MQ Kiwi and tune 4060, very clear. Charles says cool about declining info. Skip 4060 off at 0027. Zen Pharaohs 4060 S2.5 here, barely audible. Passband offset on the R8 helped a lot. Williams says, Binion's your other official cat. She's cute. Oh, she's very cute. Gecko, nice to have you here. Butterbean, nice to have you on board. And nice to have you here. Tom Irwin, first time listening. Great to have and have found you. Listen to Shortwave all the time. Love the Asia beautiful music. Cool. Welcome aboard. Brian, I would love to be your first ham contact. Maybe some of the operators here could get together and do a group to welcome your call. Cool. Riley, I usually have local nets on one, shortwave on another, medium wave on program on another. So, Ryan says his call is VA7VEB. Cool. Jay Watterson 69 says hello to Paul the Cat also. Randy, Riverside, California. Nice to have you here. WF7I Homebrew. Reminder, this weekend is the CQ Worldwide SSB contest. That is a big contest, and there's a lot of stuff in there. Yes, indeed. It's a great contest to follow. Lots of stations on different countries you never hear of, like half of the year. Pharaohs, many people have cats. How do your cats react to your radio? Mine seems to avoid. So Paul the cat is a really relaxed cat. That's the kind of cat that just wants to, half of the time, he just wants to be with you. So he doesn't mind But when I look at his ears, because cats move their ears depending on how the sounds around him and everything. Um, if it's too noisy, if it's too if there's tones and stuff like that, I'll often see Paul kind of turn his ears trying to probably do what we do on AM, null out the noise. But he doesn't usually go away unless it's really annoying. Kimberly, K6YYL, nice to have you on board from California. Pretty cool to have you here. Canadian Radio TV guy from Sherwood Park, Alberta, Canada. John Beckham, I visited with Gracie, the 8-year-old Great Tabby shelter cat today for a couple of hours, as she is so sweet and she has marked me over and over. If it's meant to be, I will adopt her. Cool. Congratulations. She'll be a happy cat, and you'll be a happy guy that adopted a cat that, old cats like that, not a lot of people want them, which is really, really sad. And I find it sad to see an old cat in a shelter. It's that breaks my heart. It's like you want to adopt all the old cats because it's like, yeah, maybe you had a great life. It's like I always say when I got Paul the cat, because I wasn't. You have to be ready to have an animal in your home, to take care of a cat or a dog. You can't take that just for, oh, well, I'll adopt a cat, and if it doesn't work, well, I'll go back to the shelter. It doesn't work like that. Um, you got to think about it. When Paul came here the first times, I was kind of okay with the fact that it was him coming here from time to time, but he would go back to his owner, which was my next door neighbor. For me, it was like it's not my cat officially. I don't have to take care of it. It's not mine. I'm not tied to the cat. But as the cat comes here regularly, you kind of like, I remember a few times before he was officially my cat, he would stay at the neighbor for 2, 3 days, and I was like, okay, I kind of miss the cat. I miss Paul. When is he going to come over and spend the night or something? Um, but there was no obligation. I didn't have an obligation. I didn't have to think that if he gets sick or something, it's not my responsibility. I'm not there. And when she moved and she said, well, Paul seems to like you a lot more than me, and which was totally true. He was like here all the time. He was, if we called Paul the cat together, he would come to see me and ignore her, which was really showing that Paul the cat was much more interested in staying here. When she said, you want to have a cat, first thing that comes to mind is it's a responsibility. It can prevent you from certain things that you might want to do. Um, there's the other side of thinking also, well, what if I move from here? The impact it's going to have. But my take, when I accepted Paul, I still remember Paul was on my lap looking at me like, we're in love. And I looked at him and I said, look, I took the responsibility to take care of you. And for me, that responsibility is until you, pass away. You will be my cat until you pass away. I will never abandon you. I will never, never, do anything to, send you to a shelter or anything. I have a friend of mine that, told me, it's like, well, it's not like that. Maybe something can happen and you have a hard time and, you can't take care of him anymore. And I said, no, no. Even if I have a hard time, I will find a way to keep him and to stay with him. I don't abide with the, well, I can't take care of him anymore because of this situation. For me, it was like, no, 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 you can't. For me, that's like a cat is like a human being. You can't just like, go away. I don't want you anymore. It doesn't work like that. And so I looked at him in the eyes and I said, I accepted the contract of taking care of you, and it's until the end. And there will be nothing can happen that's gonna change that, unless I die before he dies. That's a different thing. But I mean, as long as I'm here, he's my cat. What else do we have? Kimberly says my deceased best friend was in a wheelchair. I knew him when he was walking. Took care of him and his sores from being in a chair, and when we would go visit him, yeah, I'm taking. Yep, that was a flashlight just fell down. Sorry, guys. It's probably because I pushed the tablet a little too much. So, anyways, yeah, no, I'm taking care of someone right now, so it's something, I can tell you. That also is a tough one. And Rick downloaded Windows 11 from Microsoft website instead of program was evaluation version because you put yourself in the dev channel. You should not have put yourself in the dev channel. That is the evaluation version. If you did it today or yesterday, roll back, go into settings, and go into the Windows Update settings. You'll have a recovery option, and roll back. Because if you don't do it within 10 days, you're going to be stuck at reinstalling completely. Completely. BT Radio just works St. Martin on 80 meters. Cool. I heard a station was last year on a single sideband from St. Martin. I think it was on 20 meters. That had a pretty good signal. Matthew Barry, nice to have you here. Jay Watterson, are you sure the pressure you feel is not paranormal related? I don't think so. I don't think so. Andy New, my best shortwave listening session indoors was when I had a power cut and switched on my Texan S2000. I mean, we're all very, very, we're all very, very, happy when we have a power outage, honestly. John Paul here says Haircat's producing good induction shortwave signals. Okay, Kimberly. Matthew, number of stations keep me up at night, but all the other radio programs nearby sound great. So, what do you do with these number stations? What exactly? If you would be my neighbor and I would see you turn on the light, go on the radio, listen to a number station, then go back to bed and take notes on the pad or something, I'd be kind of wondering what is happening. KW1161, nice to have you here from Tucson, Arizona. Ron Hicks, KM4LDI. Solar flux going up. Yep, absolutely. And you need to listen. You need to listen. There's a lot of stuff out there. KW1161 loves his Belka DX. Maybe that's the next radio I should get. Matthew Barry. I live in Western New York and can occasionally get medium wave stations from Quebec. Always nice to hear their distinct Quebecois accent. Ron Hicks, been a while since I've tuned into the show. Well, welcome aboard again. Andreas. So if you enjoy my video, please subscribe and thanks for watching. Oh man. So follow Andy New following me on Twitter. Cool. Um, John Beckham remembers the girls playing Lady Pac-Man in nightclubs during the 80s. Wow. Jim Anderson 69 or the RAM chips on the counter 64 prone to going out. I should be looking into that. What is actually, because I'm sure, I mean, the Commodore computers that are 30 and 40 years old now. I'm sure there must be some blog somewhere that is okay. Here's what wears out now of these computers. Um, a friend of mine has the Commodore 64. Another one has a Commodore 128. I have the Commodore 128. The 128 uses, I think, the same DRAM chips as the Commodore 64 used to, except they have like twice the capacity. Um, so um, there probably is some computer aging of these, and it'd be interesting to see. Even the old computers, not just the Commodore, but I mean, what's like if you look at the Radio Shack series of Coco computers or the Commodore computers, and the old Macs. Like I have a Macintosh Plus here. What's wearing out here on the Macintosh Plus is the capacitors. So right now it doesn't work because the flyback is actually out. So it just resets all the time. But these old computers definitely have wear and tear of over with aging, and it's kind of interesting to see what wears out in these computers first. For sure, capacitors can be part of the problem. The Atari 1040 ST I got here, although I have to be fair, it was found in the rain. So when I took it, it was dripping water. I had to dry it out. It works for about an hour. And after an hour, the image starts becoming fuzzy. So I'm thinking it's probably the RF out that's actually not going well. But, could be capacitors, could be all sorts of things. Calvin, thank you. Gonna open them up tomorrow and check any signs of dampness or bad capacitors or anything obvious going on with them. RJ Dakota, even chemicals used in manufacture of some semiconductors have some aspect on the aging of the radio itself. Absolutely, absolutely. The way it was manufactured has an effect on how it ages well or not. What was used to put the radios together and all of that. Jean-Marc Litz, bonjour et bienvenue de Strasbourg, Alsace, France. Glad I can stay at home in the morning when cloudless nights temperatures drops to 3 Celsius, but rise to around 16 Celsius. That's cool. Cool. Take care, Calvin. Have a good night. Stay safe. Francis Moore. I mean, just getting into this, just getting into what do you think of the AOR DV10? Very interesting listening to you and your vast knowledge, Francis in UK. I don't have a lot of knowledge of the DV10, but anything that is a wideband receiver is some are better, some are worse. They're not necessarily the best receivers for shortwave, for example. But I can't speak much on the AR DV10, not owning one or not really having read a lot about it. So I'm sure some people might have a better knowledge on that receiver itself. Jay Watterson, Paul the Cat is lucky to have found Jill, and Jill is lucky to have found Paul the Cat. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Fanboy 101, what signal are you broadcasting on? YouTube. So that's pretty much YouTube stuff. Sometimes we have pirates rebroadcasting my audio, John Beckham says, "Essentials as like your way to describe your love for Paul the cat, as it was very touching." Yeah, well, you can't. The worst thing that I would hate about somebody is when somebody tells me, "Well, I took a kitten, but once it became a cat, it wasn't nice anymore." It's like, yeah, really, that kitten, loves you now, and you're just gonna send him back to a shelter. How dumb can that be? You know, Animals have feelings, and when I look at Paul, the way that he acts with me, it's obvious that in a cat way, Paul the cat loves me. It's obvious in the way that he, wants to cuddle up with me all the time, the way that he looks at me and follows me everywhere. I was building the new bed today. He was sitting next to me, you know. I think if he could have done it, he would have given me the tools. And he just like stayed there. And I was moving in one area, putting screws and doing stuff, and he was moving around and looking and trying to, and I would pet him a little bit. And it was like, wow, he spent almost 2 hours just sitting there, following me around, building the bed frame and everything. That is a demonstration of, the cat loves you. He wants to be with you. He wants to see what you're doing, you know? WF7I Homebrew just worked 9G5FI Ghana again. 40 meters, FT8. Cool. Francis Moore used to have a lovely Siamese cat called Cheetah. Nothing really to do with AM radio, but he used to lie on the TV because it was warm and reception was always better when he got off. Not so good. Well, it could have an effect. The body of the cat could have an effect on the radio, the TV, with the radio waves or the RF waves going through the antenna. It could change. Take care, Andinho, 73. Chaz Tank, nice to have you here from Louisville, Kentucky. Canadian TV guy, are you talking about the flyback transformer for the CRT and the Mac? You could find one on eBay to replace it. Yeah, I know. It is the CRT that's the flyback transformer in the CRT that's gone. Actually, I found if I wanted to change it, I saw an eBay place where he sells a complete board. You don't even have to do anything special. He sells boards that were tested okay, and they're not that expensive actually. If I wanted to have it back working, because I mean, with the hard drive under it, it has um, the OS 7 operating system in it. It actually does work. It'd be kind of cool just for the fact that it works. Kind of fun that it's kind of a cool device. J. Watterson 69, there are complete manuals as well as videos showing how to fix everything on a Commodore. Oh, I'm sure. Um, there's a guy that I kind of like his videos. He's the 8-bit guy. I think the channel is called 8-bit guy. And he has a complete history of Commodore computers. But he also has some interesting videos like, for example, the Macintosh Plus, fixing the Macintosh Plus, stuff like that. John Beckham, the aluminum tubular type of capacitor seems to be quite popular in today's electronics and radios. So, it'd be interesting to see also if there's an improvement in electronics. Are there parts in electronics today that are better than other parts? That's something that'd be interesting to check out. Maybe today's capacitors are better at withstanding time. I don't know. We do have improvements in the way that things are actually produced, for sure. 0-100 had Commodore 64s and computer lab in the 6th grade. So, wow. Chastank, I understand what you're saying about Mr. Paul. My cat Shiba chose me and was not happy unless she was with me. I miss her. She passed at 18 years old. Well, we miss. I think we miss our animals. Cat, dogs, as much. When somebody tells me it's just a cat or it's just a dog, it's like, no, you don't understand. You don't understand. It is as painful, and it is for us. Somebody as important as a family member. It's that's the way it is. You know, it hurts as much. There's no difference. I know I'm going to cry my heart out when Paul the cat dies. And in a more positive note, let's check out anything else in the pirate stuff here. Nothing reported there. Anything in the bands? Let's check out the bands a little bit here. Any stations on the bands? So what's this here on 11640? There's a signal. Let's go to 31 meter band 9.580. Let's check out. Pretty good signal from and very wide signal too. China Radio International via Cuba. Look at that. That is very, very, and it's such a wide signal too. These two, for example, will make sure people wear their mask properly. It's a boring job, but it's important. It's blasting on the Air Spy HF Plus. It shows 60 dB over 9. 9580. This is from Cuba. One of the rare, real good Cuban China radio frequencies in North America. Remember when China radio was a nuisance for a lot of people? They are lowering the number of frequencies and times they are broadcasting on shortwave. I was reading an article where China Radio International is actually rethinking its shortwave outlets. So that's kind of interesting here. Sebastien says, as a loner in the childhood, is Pidola 232 was not just a radio, it was his best friend. I'm a you guys are gonna laugh at this. I'm pretty much an introvert. As you see, it really shows. But no, less today than I was in the past. In the past, I was like, if you guys would have seen me 20 years ago, 25 years ago, you would have said, yeah, okay, that's the guy that is in a little bubble, I had friends. I mean, I was not one of those loners that didn't have any friends. I had friends, but I was very, in my little world. And I think I said it in the past. I wouldn't be surprised that radio helped me not go bad, not take a direction in life that isn't the right one. Because that was kind of cool. And I just listened to the radio and had fun, sending out for QSLs. And I mean, it was so cool to come back from school, and my mom would have put this little pile of letters that I received during the day that were in the mailbox. I was so happy to see all the letters I received from everywhere around the world. Coming home to big envelopes and letters from sometimes there was so much that I remember one day I came home from school, and my mom says, yeah, I had to go downstairs to get the letters because the mailman said there were too many to enter to put in the mailbox, which is a very small, one of those apartment small mailboxes in the wall. So they're really like they're like long, but they're not very big. So, for regular letters, they're fine. But for what I was receiving, sometimes it was like, no, this was too much. And I would come home and says, yeah. My mom would look at me and says, yeah, look on your computer. Look at all the stuff you got today. I had to actually go down and pick it up because it was there was too much for the mailbox. And that was my fun. And I always say, if you have children, take time to invest in a hobby of some sort. It doesn't have to be shortwave or radio, but find time to have them learn something. You know, I was reading about somebody saying, that was mentioning that they were kind of unhappy that that today's kids aren't interested in, say, electronics or radio. Or you know what, I think kids today will be interested at that in that as much as we did if we do it right. It's all in the way that it happens. Then you got to be careful, because remember, we are unique in the way that we loved radio and we went crazy over radio, but not everybody does that. And of all of our friends, I had a few friends, really close friends. I had one that was crazy about radio for a while with me. The other one wasn't crazy about radio, but he enjoyed it because he was crazy about electronics. And it kind of joins, the electronic side of the stuff. I mean, we can't all love radio, and we can't all love stuff. An example of that: my brother always loved golf. I always, laughed at him almost because of that, because I was like, yeah, golf, really. But at the same time, as I was, doing that, he was looking at me and says, "Yeah, I'm going to golf. You listen to your noise." You know, it's we all have our thing. We all have what we like and what we don't like. And it's what makes the world fun, that not everybody loves the same thing. I think it's just a question of finding who in the hobby likes radio, who in the hobby would like electronics. I mean, for the future, we will need these people. We will need people that know electronics and go crazy for electronics. Who fixes this stuff today? People that just went crazy of the electronics. They love electronics. They love electronic stuff. So they, of course, loved fixing it. And we'll need that in the future still. In 100 years from now, there'll be more and more electronics, and there'll be people that we need to have. Even though we do live in a world where a lot of the electronics today is when it's when it's going bad, we just throw it away or recycle it. There's still, and there will always be a part of it that is, yeah, but fixing it is a good thing, and we need to do it. And maybe even with the our side of the economy, our side of the world that wants to be greener, maybe we'll go back someday to, instead of throwing out this thing, we're going to repair it. And even if you don't want it back, somebody else will, at a lower price, be happy to have your secondhand device. And we have no choice. If we want to be greener in our world, if we want to be happy and help the planet, that is also one thing that we'll have to think about. But that will require people that know how to fix. And so I think there's still a place for that. But you know for true for true, it's a different world, that's for sure. Computers today are not like computers like a Commodore 64. We punched in those programs for a couple of hours to find that it didn't work because we messed up somewhere and had to check the code again, and then we had the gameplay. And I mean, that's not what's happening today. And computers today are fun for somebody that has its first computer, that's for sure. But there's part of the magic of the computer also that's not there, that was there with those older computers at the same time. At the other end, computers today are much easier to use. People that never learned or couldn't use a Commodore can use a PC. There's good sides to everything. Dave, do you know if it's possible to set frequency offset of the airband on the PL660? I can do it for me, FM, shortwave, and medium wave. I do not believe you can change the frequency offset for the 660 on the airband. You have the impression it's off frequency? Just out of curiosity? And nice to have you here from Melbourne, Australia. But I do not believe you can change it on the airband. Because at the same time, on the airband, it would have to be so off to be a problem. So I'm wondering why you want to check that out. James Farley, yeah, I had that cartridge, the SWL cartridge that you would put in the back of the computer, and it would decode radio teletype and Morse code and Navtex. I had that. I had purchased it from, I think it was Universal Radio. I had seen that ad in the Computes Gazette magazine. And one day I had the money and I actually made a money order to buy one and send it in. And I got the SWL cartridge in the mail. Hey, Matt. Nice to have you on board. MDK2 from Denver, Colorado. Chastain remembers in the 80s when so many religious broadcasters were airing out South America, Central America. So powerful they would jam up several frequencies instead of one. Yep. John Beck and REI used to send me lots of info in the mail. Francis Moore, thanks, mate, for talking to me, responding to my questions. My dad was a radio operator in Burma, World War II, and having survived, got back and was a radio ham. I'm not getting into it after such a long time. Cool. It's a great hobby, and there's still a lot to enjoy in the hobby, Francis. So welcome aboard, and this is the great place to ask questions and have fun. Honestly, John Beckham, building a crystal radio should be a prerequisite before entering shortwave radio. Mark JD Dakota was always getting something from somewhere like South Africa or even Australia. My parents were equally astonished at where everything was coming from and what it was. Hank Parr, nice to have you on board. Nice to have you here. BT Radio is listening to WWCR on 5935. What else do we have? JD Dakota, my crystal radio was a uniquely great thing. Paul says, I always liked Mexican radio, Wall of Voodoo. Sebastien, my interest in the radio got into the synthesizers. John Beckham says the kits were great back in the day, indeed. Hank Parr, glad to be here. Missed the last one. Yeah, that song, I'm on a Mexican radio. Christopher Tango. Wow, great to see everyone. Nice to have you here, my friend. For sure. For sure. Kimberly says we might one day harvest garbage dumps for old elections and other things that weren't taken. Old electronics, maybe what you mean? To e-waste. Yeah. says old elections, old electronics, probably. That's what you meant. Yeah. I always thought, as a guy that likes old computers, and as us that like old radios. I mean, we have the radios we see that are available on eBay and so on. But in reality, how many how many of those really cool radios never found a home and ended up in the dump? They're buried somewhere. When I think about it, it's like, well, this is crazy. So many radios that would have a home today, possibly. Maybe would have been fixed if they were broken. Would have a place, you know. Um, there must be a lot of them there. I just thinking, how many Commodore 64s are in the dump? How many of them were buried? I think we'd be surprised at the numbers. Oh man, Radio Peru from Lima. Oh man, pretty crazy. Chris Alpha Tango, make sure you add me on Facebook, Chris Whistler. Did you just ask for Facebook? Let's check it out here. Check it out here. Official channel. Let's see if anybody has no requests right now. So, anyways, if maybe somebody has added you, but So Robert Cross, I'm on late tonight. No work. What else do we have? Hey, Sheldon Harvey, nice to have you here from Greenfield Park, Quebec. Dave, it's off by 2 kilohertz. I know it's not much, but being quite quiet on airband, it makes a difference. If I tune extra 2, it's no big deal, but I love to think, yeah, I understand your, I have the same, I have the same, I have the same disease that it has to be right on dot or I'm not happy. But I don't think on the airband there is a way to calibrate it, unfortunately. Yeah, autocorrect. I know. That's what I thought. It was like autocorrect. Robert Cross loves repairing old vintage radios. And there's a fun thing about, reviving some old electronic that is gone, and bring it back to life. And we're proud. Zenfaro's actually like my new FRG7 needed some contact cleaner. Probably another dose is indicated, but it's really as good as its reputation. It's nice. It's a great radio. It's a very beautiful radio too. Those old radios have, a sexy side to them. John Beckham, what frequency is Radio Argentina on? So it's on. So Argentina is via WRMI, and let me just bring out the schedule here. This is going to maybe change in Sunday, because remember, guys, Sunday the schedules are changing. By the way, so if I look at, just see here, RAE Argentina. So Argentina, Radio Stereo Argentina. Tuesday to Saturday, 9395 at 01 to 0130. So we just missed it, actually. It just ended 10 minutes ago on 9395 kilohertz via WRMI. So that's the English language Radio Argentina al Exterior, WRMI. Tuesday to Saturday on 9395. Then they have Thursday at 02 UTC on 7780 and 5800, because their show is actually a show once a week, by the way. Since the since the pandemic. They've done a show only once a week. On Fridays, it's in French. On Wednesday, it's in Portuguese. Tuesday and Saturday in Spanish. So at 0200 to 0300 on 7780 and 5800. So today being Thursday, UTC, in 20 minutes, they should be in English actually on 7780 and 5800, guys. So that's something to look for. 20 minutes from now, 19 minutes from now. So let's check it out. I'm going to check the frequencies right away. 7780 and 15800. So China radio via Cuba, 9580. 7.780 from rather noisy here. Very weak signal. Kind of weak signal that we're having. Wait. Yeah, it's kind of weak. It's a little noisy here. Actually, I have more noise than usual here. I don't know what's happening. So 5800, 5.800. That was actually better here, even though it's directed to Central America. So 5800. So in 20 minutes, not even 18 minutes time, if you want to try Argentina in English via WRMI, 7780 and 5800. So that should be on from WRMI Relay. They still say in their transmissions that they're going to be fixing their transmitters, but the longer it takes, the less I think it's going to happen. What else do we have? Jim, nice to have you here from Rhode Island. Pretty cool. Rand, nice to have you here. Karen, those radios will be the only thing working after China bombs us. Yeah, that's not the way it works. Maybe you should brush up a little more on who will bomb who someday. You could be very surprised. Zen Pharaoh says near the frequency is 9420, where I believe is Greece. Tonight was not a great propagation night, but now it's booming S9 plus. So Greece 9420. What else do we have? Yeah. So hey, Yang Par. In the 70s and 80s, Sebastian, Radio Moscow was everywhere. Radio Moscow was everywhere on the bands. It was crazy. I mean, it was the thing that I think in the Cold War era, that was Radio Moscow was definitely one of the stations we were curious to listen to. And really, really curious to listen to. Seeing and listening to what was, being said. And just saying one thing, guys. Only one more comment, political comment, and you're banned. And this is a very serious warning. No political comments at all. And I'm not joking. Last chance. Okay. So, I mean, Radio Moscow was the thing you all listened to. There's the Russian Woodpecker, 000. Russian Woodpecker is, it was everywhere. It was jamming. Hams were pissed off because it was jamming the ham bands. Shortwave listeners were pissed off because it was jamming the international broadcast bands. Wow. There's a lot of stuff. Coming from the from the Soviet Union, and we were curious. Honestly, we were really curious. Um, it's um, it's one of those things that makes us, when I say, I think especially people that been listening to um shortwave for a long time, the the openness, I think we are more open to everything around the world because of that, because we've seen the world in a different way. We definitely heard news from countries talking about events that were talked in our own country, and that were that change or actually defined part of what we um you know what we thought about all of what was happening around us. I don't abide by the, well, Radio Moscow was just communist stuff and that's it. I am more into they had their way of thinking, the Western Bloc had their way of thinking, but us listeners were in the middle of that, and we listened to everything from everybody. We made our own judgment of what was happening and how things were in reality. Um, I think that's what also describes shortwave as something amazing, is listen to the world and you might understand that world a little better than having shortwave, no more shortwave, and no more stations from around the world talking about their own way of thinking of how they think about world events. And we're isolated in our own little cocoon of our own little broadcasts that people in our vicinity wants us to believe. Shortwave was a different thing. Shortwave was, yeah, this is my cocoon of broadcast, but I'm actually going out of it and listening to what Radio Moscow wants to say, and what Radio Berlin International was talking about, and what other countries, because we weren't all in the same level of where we are in, our thinking of the world. Listening to Swiss Radio International, Radio Sweden, Radio Norway, all of these stations giving their viewpoints of what they think of world events also at the same time. I think it created a unique thing in our head. And if you were interested somewhat in the programs and listened to shortwave in the 70s, the 80s, I think we had our own way of thinking of how the Cold War is and how everything was happening. And I'm not sure that anybody listening to Radio Moscow really thought that the Soviet Union was the bad guy. I think we were more camped in yeah, they have their way of thinking, their way of wanting to be. It might not be what I want. It might not, I would not, I might not agree with it, but it doesn't seem that bad compared to what I'm being taught. So I think shortwave was amazing for opening our minds to everything. Honestly, I think it was really good to open our mind. JDA Dakota, Radio Moscow was on a frequency in almost every meter band. Absolutely. Absolutely. They were everywhere. They had several frequencies in the 40-meter band. It was crazy. Joseph, enjoyed a man who was on Radio Moscow since World War II and did a history show. I remember when he died. I mean, not everything on Radio Moscow was, just propaganda. There was some interesting stuff in there too. But there definitely was propaganda that you can't. But then again, Voice of America is propaganda. I mean, we have to abide by the rule that if one side has propaganda, the other does also. But we take all of that together, and we took all of that together, and we created our own way of thinking, um, of how the world was working. And it might have changed our viewpoints of certain aspects of even what our local, you know, governments were talking about. There were things that maybe we're like, yeah, okay, maybe I'm not abiding by that anymore. But, one thing for sure, I don't think Radio Moscow turned people into communists. It didn't work for me. That's for sure. But and if you listen, I remember when I was a teenager. I mean, the Moscow mailbag. Um, you know, how cool was it? Just imagine for a second. How cool is it for a 14 or 15-year-old teenager to get a letter that's telling you that Radio Moscow will answer your questions on the air, and you have the dates and the times in UTC? Come on. You look at that letter and you're like, really? They're going to mention my name. I still remember the question I asked. How many Canadian tourists go to the USSR every year? I still remember that. I still remember the question. I still remember the letter, because I didn't think they would, do that and go to the length of, well, we'll answer your questions in the following frequencies and times. I mean, wow, pretty crazy. I mean, who would not be excited, you know? But it still didn't turn me into a communist. I mean, I don't think that's the way it works. Um, you might have your viewpoint, I might have mine. Doesn't mean I'm going to change mine. Maybe have viewpoints of a lot of people. It might differ or change somewhat. And what Shortwave was bringing us is that choice of ideas, choice of what people are thinking around the world of events, and giving their viewpoint on it. You know, it's it's crazy. Zen Pharaohs, for a long time, shortwave listening was how I got a variety of perspectives on news. All that has moved to the internet, but it's not quite the same. No, it's different. And the internet, you got to be careful. There's you know, there's fake news, there's news the way you want to tell it, and there's real news. Shortwave was not necessarily fake news, it was just news designed with my way of thinking, which is not totally fake. It's just different. Today, the internet is more polarized into one aspect or the other. It's very, very different. On shortwave, there were some stations that were really camped, like communist, total communist. Radio Albania was like number one communism station in, in shortwave. You listen to Radio Albania, you're a comrade, and you better abide by the rules of the Communist Party. It's like North Korea. Let's love our leader and just kneel before him, as we are all happy as he is doing everything apparently to save the world. I mean, there were that existed for sure, for sure. But a lot of stations were very in the middle, and Radio Moscow was communist with a, let's not be too far in communism, and let's just try to make believe that it's a beautiful thing to be here. like Radio Berlin. Radio Berlin was not an extreme communist station. It was one of those middle of the road station where, yeah, life seems interesting, and I don't know, we can see it, and of course, we were listening to all the other stations, so we could make our mind with that. But man, definitely there was some really harsh, communist stuff. That's for sure. Radio Albania. That's not when we listened the other day to the broadcast when the leader died. It's like, wow, this is nuts. This is like totally crazy. You know, that's for sure. Yeah, 0 100. Radio Moscow left. Radio Moscow changed into the Voice of Russia, and they were on in the early 2000s, maybe until 2010 or something, and then left. The weirdest part of is that they're still registering frequencies for Voice of Russia on shortwave, which are make believe frequencies because they're not coming back. You know, there you go, RGA Dakota. You listen to every bits, and then you make your mind. You know, John Hummel Newell, nice to have you here. VE5JHN. Robert Cross, 2:50 in the morning. Wow. What else do we have? What else do we have? John Beck and Formijo, early shortwave broadcasts were coming from the BBC, Radio Moscow, VOA, and Radio Canada. So that was a variety, you know? You had Radio Moscow in the mix, but you also had the, Western news like the BBC and Radio Canada giving their own viewpoints. Voice of America. But you had Radio Moscow in the mix, and it was there. It was definitely there in the mix. And I think a lot of us shortwave listeners, even if we would abide by the BBC or Radio Canada, we would still listen to Radio Moscow and see what they have to say. You know. So is Argentina coming in at 5800? It's supposed to be according to the schedules, but WRMI schedules are So Radio Miami 5800. Is that going to be? Yep, Argentina starting right now. 5800. They're also in 7780. Argentina to the world in English. 7780 and 5800 via WRMI. So RAE Argentina 5800 via WRMI. Take care, Christian Marcoux. Fais attention à toi. Yeah, it happened a few times for me too, Chastang, that that some of the letters coming from some of these countries that were actually were actually opened. It happened to me too. So even here in Canada, that would happen. You know. Oh yeah, RG88 Dakota. I remember the really beautiful calendars that China was giving away. Can tell you that. Yogi, looking to buy a radio, a great radio. Uh, how much you want to spend? And I'll tell you what great radio to get. Richard just hooked up the MLA30 to the ATS25. It works great. Love my newest toy. Oh yeah, it's a fun little radio. Definitely, definitely. With the MLA30, it works great. Works great. Um, yeah, it depends on what where you are, because 7780 and 5800 are not on the same direction. For me, 5800 is better. Let's try 7780 for the fun of it. So you see, for me, 7780 is very noisy, but 5800 is pretty good. So this depends where you live. Some of you have much better signal on 7780. I have a better signal on 5800. So they say that they're repairing the transmitter someday, but yeah, you know what? Um, I'm not sure. But you know what's cool, at least, is that they are broadcasting via a relay, and they are using WRMI to relay their broadcast. I think that's just cool. Ron Hicks, yeah, voice of the report of the week on WRMI. Here, I hear that broadcast quite regularly. Then Pharaoh 7780, much more intelligible here. Another frequency, not the greatest propagation tonight. For the MLA 30 plus, 2 days ago was fabulous. 150 US dollars. Get yourself. So you have the choice. You can get yourself a Texan PL330. You'll have a great package for less than $100. XH data or CU with on D808, great radio for the price. And you'll have single sideband capabilities with all of that. You got several radios for choice on for that price range, and even less. And you'll be amazed at how they perform. Richard 7780 Albany 5x5. JJ8 left is PL680. Ron Hicks loves his PL 880. Zenfaro 7800, 7850, probably. His S9 Plus 5800 is 3.5 in New York City. Dave 5800 better in Indianapolis. 0 Radio New Zealand was a challenge to get sometimes. Yeah, it still is a little bit, but there are some times in dates, in seasons where it's actually better. So Jeff Whitney 808 for around $72. Matt at 5800 is better for me, but neither one is great. Hank Parr, shortwave listening, LSB, SSB, AM, or FM. There's almost no FM in shortwave. First of all, hamband, 10-meter hamband, top part does have a little bit. Maybe you might get some European FM, and maybe soon some FM from here, because FM is now accepted on CB range. But international broadcast bands, stations that you listen, like we're listening to Argentina right now, that's AM. And almost every station on the international broadcast bands are AM. Everything else is single sideband, pretty much. Ham bands are either upper or lower sideband, depending on the frequency range. Utility signals of all kinds are all upper sideband. Pirates, a lot of them are in single sideband. There's a few in AM mode, but FM is probably the mode that's least used on shortwave. Just think I'm hoping for a great deal on a new radio before Christmas. Some projects I want to build this winter, antennas and things. John Beckham, 7780 is better for me in Northeast Florida. Yeah, you're really close there in Northeast Florida. Ron Hicks, I bought my Texan PL 880 after hearing the MTC commercial on WTWW. So, Angelo, nice. So it's nice to to have some shortwave stations to listen to and have some really cool stuff on the bands. So Argentina. So their broadcast is once a week for the time. Argentina, they said that since the pandemic, they had less staff, and the broadcast was passed from being a 4 or 5 day a week broadcast to a once a week broadcast. But it's better than nothing, and they're still on the air. It's like those stations like Radio Slovakia, Radio Prague. They left shortwave from their own transmitter sites. Yeah, it's sad. I understand it that some people say, well, you're not hearing it from Slovakia and so on. Yeah, I get it. But I rather have them on WRMI as relays so I can listen to their programs than nothing at all, honestly. So we got to understand that there's a choice here to make, and these stations are there. Well, cool, they're there because they're relayed, and I think a lot of stations that left might have been interested in having a really inexpensive relay, basically, on the shortwave bands. Honestly, So, hey guys, I'm a little tired from my day today, which was a very physical day. I hope you enjoyed the show tonight. We've been on for 2 hours and 8 minutes. It's a little shorter than usual, but you know, Saturday is going to be a big show. Saturday is going to be the Halloween show. Anything can happen, and I don't know what's going to be the surprise. I don't know how everything's going to be here, but hey, something's going to happen on Saturday, that's for sure. So I hope that you can join us on Saturday and join in our Halloween show. And we'll try Halloween Pirates. I'm sure there's going to be some Halloween Pirates and any other things that could be in there. And from now to Saturday, probably going to have the reviews of the radios that I talked about earlier, the CountyCom GP7 SSB and the Sangean ATS 405. You guys will see what I think of those radios for sure. So Benny Dubia, 73 to everybody, and hope that everybody enjoyed the show today. Take care, stay safe. I'm going to listen to Argentina for the rest of its broadcasts, and hope that you enjoyed our show tonight. See you on Saturday for Haunted Show, where anything can happen. And let's hope there's going to be a lot of pirates and a lot of stuff to listen to. Bye, everybody. Stay safe and see you soon on the Shortwave channel.